I've always been particular when it comes to relationships. I refuse to be mistreated. And I think a big part of that is because I grew up with a present father, a man who showed me by example what it meant to truly be there for your family. I'm writing this now because I keep seeing all these conversations online about how men with blue-collar jobs deserve a break when they come home, how it's somehow okay to clock out from family life after a long day. To be honest, it baffles me. I just can't relate to that mindset. For some context, my dad worked full-time at a blue-collar job. My mum worked part-time, starting around the time I went to preschool. But even though my dad worked long hours and was often physically exhausted, I never saw him treat family time as some chore he had to be reminded to do. He didn't see spending time with us, his own children, as something he had to give my mum a break to accomplish. He didn't treat us like tasks to be shared between him and my mum, like laundry or lawn care. Instead, he came home eager to be with us. If I close my eyes, I can still picture him coming in after work, looking tired but lighting up the moment he saw us. His workday ended the moment he came through that door, because being with us wasn't work to him. When he was home, he didn't need a nudge or a prompt to step in and take over. If my mum was sick or needed a minute, he didn't hesitate. He'd step right in, no questions asked. If dinner needed to be made, he'd make it, sure. Sometimes it was pancakes or chicken nuggets with a side of instant rice, but we were fed, and he'd serve it up with a smile. If my mum wanted to go take a shower, she'd just go. She didn't have to ask, didn't have to explain. My dad was her partner, not her backup or relief crew. He was a full part of the team, and he never needed prompting to take care of us. He was just there. And when my mum wasn't available, I knew that I could turn to my dad for anything. I knew he'd be there to help, to listen, to just be present. He'd take us out to the hardware store on a Saturday morning, and we'd help him pick out nuts and bolts or bags of soil. He'd bring us to the park, happily pushing us on the swings, tossing a football, or teaching us how to skip rocks on the pond. And it wasn't because he felt obligated, it was because he liked being with us. He loved it, actually. One day, I even asked him why he was always so enthusiastic about spending time with us, even when he'd been working all day. He looked at me, surprised that I'd even need to ask. "Well, yeah," he said with a chuckle. "I couldn't wait to get home to you guys. It was all I thought about all day. It was that simple. We were his joy, his peace. His family was the place he wanted to be." This is why I can't wrap my head around these conversations where people feel entitled to clock out of parenting the moment they walk through the door. I see people proudly declaring that they're great partners because they give their spouse a break with the kids once in a while, as if that was something worth applauding. To me, that's less than the bare minimum. If you're a parent, it's called being a parent. Your children aren't just chores to be shared, something you handle for an hour before retreating to your me time. They're your kids. They're not items on a checklist or things you can put down and pick up at your convenience. And to all those people who say, "Well, my spouse is a stay-at-home parent," or "My partner only works part-time," it's not the same. Let me tell you, I heard it all. My dad would listen to the same kind of complaints from his buddies or colleagues, men who'd say they were too tired from their long days to do anything when they got home. He'd listen, maybe nod a little, but then he'd give a shrug and a laugh and say, "Tough luck. You're a parent, aren't you?" And that was the end of it. There was no sympathy, no justification. You don't get to clock out from your kids just because you're tired. Family life doesn't have an off switch, and for my dad, there was no need for one. Nobody gets a break from being a parent. You're on call 24/7. If your kids need you, they need you. And yes, There were nights when my dad was bone-tired, barely able to keep his eyes open after a grueling day at work, but he'd be there, talking to us, sitting with us at dinner, reading us a story before bed. He didn't go and hide in his office or plant himself on the couch. He was present. And I'll always remember the way he'd say that childhood doesn't last forever, that you only get so many years of being the center of your kid's universe. He'd tell me, one day, they won't need you like this. One day they'll be off living their own lives. So why wouldn't I be there now, while they still do? Seeing this model of partnership and parenthood has shaped my expectations, and I know I won't settle for anything less. Because the way I see it, you're not doing anything special by showing up for your kids. You're doing exactly what you signed up for when you became a parent. If my dad could do it, if he could come home from his tough job every day and still show up for us with that love and enthusiasm, then anyone can. And it doesn't matter how exhausted you are. You're a parent. You have a family. So go be with them, because those years are precious and they slip by faster than you think.